In today's video describing the likelihood of an event, you will be able to describe the likelihood of an event occurring in both number and word form. So we're going to start out with word form. How likely is an event to occur? On one end of the spectrum, you can think about it as something being impossible. So like if I were to say, how likely is it that you are born on February 31st? That would be an impossible event because there is no 31st day of February. Certain event. Certain event means it's going to happen every single time. So an example of a certain event would be if I roll a number cube, it's going to land on number 1 through 6. That's a certain event. In the middle of those two is just as likely as unlikely. And that would be like flipping a coin. You have one side that has heads, one side that has tails. So it's just as likely as unlikely that you land on heads. In the middle we have unlikely and likely. So those are the word forms that you can use to describe the likelihood of an event occurring. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the numerical approach. Well, first of all, probability is written as a ratio or a fraction, so that's what we're going to start out with. So if something is an impossible event, the chance that's going to happen is 0. If it's certain, it's a 1. If it's just as likely as unlikely, that means it's 1/2. And if it's unlikely, it's between 0 and 1/2. And if it's likely, the probability is greater than 1/2 but less than 1. So that would be with a fraction. We can also express, since it's a fraction, we can convert it to a decimal. So this would still be 0, or if you want 0.0. A half would be 0 and 5/10, and 1 whole would be 1 or 1/1. Okay. The third way would be as a percent. Well, 0 would be 0%. 0.5, if you move the decimal twice, would be 50%, because 5/10 would be 50 out of 100. Half is 50%. And 1 whole would be 100%. So again, anything in between here, between 0 and 50 would be unlikely. Between 50 and 100 would be likely. So those are the numerical approaches to describing probability. Okay, so let's do some examples. Estimate the probability of the next baby being born at Jenny Stewart being a boy. Write in words and as a fraction, decimal, and a percent. Okay, well the next baby could be a boy or a girl. Okay, so we have one possible outcome of the baby being a boy out of 2. So 1/2. 1/2 as a decimal is 0 and 5/10. As a percent is 50%. Since that's 50% or 1/2 or 0 and 5/10, we could say it is just as likely as unlikely. It's just as likely that the next baby is a boy as it is a girl. Our next example. Estimate the probability that it will snow in Florida in July. Write in words and as a fraction, decimal, and percent. The probability of it snowing in July in Florida, where it's very warm in the summer, if it says estimate, so we don't know for sure, but let's just say it's probably not going to happen. So we're going to give it a probability of 0 or 0% or 0 out of 1. Okay. That also means that that is most likely impossible. I mean, you could argue that it would be unlikely, that there is a slim chance, but realistically it's most likely impossible. Okay, our third example, estimate the probability you have math homework on a school night. Write in words and as a fraction, decimal, and a percent. Well, if you think back, most every single night you have homework, but you don't have it every single night, so it can't be 100%. But it's pretty close. So let's say maybe in a week of 5 days, so let's say 4 out of 5. Okay, that would be our fraction. That fraction is 0 8/10 as a decimal and 80% as a percent, which means that this is a likely event. It means it happens more than 50% but less than 100% of the time. Alright, your turn. You place the marbles shown above into a bag. Write the probability of the following events in words as a fraction, decimal, and a percent. So the first one would be, what's the probability of you drawing a red marble? Second, the probability of blue. And third, the probability of green.